Welcome to Beyond the Business Card podcast.
If no one knows you, they can't give you the money. Yeah. So like the more known you are, the easier it is. So best known beats best. You can be the greatest coach in the world, but if you live under the fucking stairs like Dobby and Harry Potter, like you're not going to have any clients. So like you need to be in front of people, because eyeballs is the first part of the jigsaw puzzle to then have a successful business.
Today's guest is Charlie Johnson, a former estate agent who walked out of his 9-to-5 and built a $17 million online fitness empire. He's the founder of Charlie Johnson Fitness and 7-figure scaling systems, helping coaches around the world build wildly profitable businesses. In this episode, we dive into the mindset, mistakes, and lessons that took him from burnout to freedom. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Big thank you for the introduction, Justin. So brief synopsis for myself. I was a failed personal trainer in 2008 at the original gym group in Guildford, near actually where you were originally from. I then went into real estate, became a branch manager of an estate agent, which was independently owned, and then got bought by a private company, the Leaders Romans Group. Some interesting stories in that. I then realized, fuck this, I'm going to go do my own thing. Built one of the biggest online fitness businesses in the world, moved to Dubai, and we now help people scale wildly profitable online fitness businesses. In the short synopsis, we've generated over $17 million online. And today I actually worked out on Stripe like 2-3 weeks ago, which is wild. We've had 18,000 customers.
Wow.
Which when I looked at that, I was like, I thought it was half, I thought it was like 10,000.
Yeah.
So I looked at that, I was like, holy shit, that's like a small town.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, gave me a lot of context. And then we recently won the 2 Common Club X Award from Fun Hack Live. I now work with Alex Hormozy and some of his team actually helping us with our own business. And we just want to try and help people have as much impact and income as they can in their life.
Gotcha. Wow, we've got a lot to unpack there. So that was your life, or your work life, summarized quickly in 30 seconds. But let's go back. So you alluded to you and I are from the same town. Yeah. So tell us a bit about early years, Charlie.
So I was from a middle upper class background, as I guess you describe it as. Grew up in the countryside in a place called Ockley in border of Surrey and Sussex. Really, really nice, although it was very isolated. So actually as a child, I think there was a lot of things that actually forced me to naturally probably become a very introvert, because I was naturally around people all the time. Mm-hmm. I was very fortunate to go to private school, went to a place called Belmont that was now shut down, and then also a place called Box Hill School, which I think you know of. Yeah, which I just went to. I think those formed my early years. But one of the things I think is very interesting that I look back on now, although I went to private school and a lot of the kids there came from wealthy backgrounds, I don't really see any of them hugely successful now. Yeah. Which for me, I think shows the difference maybe between a British mentality, American mentality, in terms of people I think who are from a safer and more privileged background of the UK, always play it very safe, and they're going to get the corporate job of working for the fucking bank or become a lawyer and they make 150 grand a year. Yeah. They don't want to go like cavalanning off and go and start their own business and move to Dubai and do all this crazy shit because it's not a safe thing to do. Whereas I think culturally what's different is in America, if you're from an entrepreneurial family, you will become entrepreneurial yourself. Yeah. Whereas I think in the UK, from my perspective, we seem to teach kids to play it safe.
Was your dad an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Was your dad an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Okay, so you had that. Have you got brothers and sisters?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so what are they doing?
My brother is the polar opposite of me in the polite way. And I think, so he actually works in real estate, but for example, I have to, like my girlfriend nudged me, be like, and my mum to like fucking rein it in, because I'll be having a pop at my dinner, being like, don't be a pussy, you just need to do this and like start quicker, and like, because I'm all about speed of implementation, and just like, I don't understand why people can't just do it. And if I had a gift, that was probably it at the beginning, is I would just like run headfirst through walls and just didn't really care, and just see what would happen afterwards. I would say now with more business experience and having a bigger business, I have to flip that on its head, because you can't run through walls all the time because you end up breaking everything, which I think actually as entrepreneurs, we have ADHD and we want to go and do new shit all the time. Therefore, we break our business every 6 months. Yeah. So we have something to fix. So now I'm learning to undo my previous superpower. And that's where I think that people need to understand, depending on what level you are at business, you need to focus on different skill sets. But I think the most important thing for many people is actually just to get started. And I think that's where I get frustrated with my brother and anyone else.
Yeah. So you're not the first person I've spoken to actually has a sibling who's the polar opposite to them, which is so weird when you brought up in the same house, same values, etc.
So you can even look at it from like character traits. So like he drinks, he smokes, I don't drink, I don't smoke, wow. I don't do, like we're literally like apples and oranges. I think part of that was my family moved to Marbella in 2008 when he was 14, 15, I guess, and I was probably 18, 19. I then quickly went back to UK because I wanted to just go and do my own thing. And I realized that people spend money in Spain. They do not make money in Spain. So if I want to be successful as an entrepreneur, that's not the place. And just reminded me of a funny story for anyone for context. I actually couldn't get a job when I was in Spain that summer, to the point where me and a friend of mine, Jack, if he listens to this, we interviewed for a job of like cleaning in a fucking kitchen in an Indian restaurant. And the guy was like, oh, it's too dangerous for you to use power washers. And I'm like, are you fucking retarded, dude? So it's like, I look back on that now and I kind of laugh, but those small things probably have a big effect on like the trajectory of your life and where you go.
Gotcha. You know, what you said about school, I bring so many truths to myself as well. So I went to St. John's, Leatherhead, which was around the corner from where you went.
I had loads of friends who went there.
Yeah. And we had this weird situation. So my dad, and I got a scholarship into St. John's, and my dad also paid like a chunk of fees up front. So I didn't actually ever really come from much money when I was into the school, but because my folks had paid up front and I got this sports scholarship, I was and my mum then went on into benefits, right? So I was a kid living in a house that was like basically paid for by the government, going to a private school where people were rocking up in really nice cars, etc. So I was aware how lucky I was every day, and I actually look back on my school years and like go, wow, and I love them. Whereas when I go back and meet a lot of my ex-schoolmates now, they're like not doing that great. They're all in pretty Joe average jobs. None of them really looked after themselves that well, and none of them really talk about school as fondly as I did. And I was really grateful to be there every day, but also it made me acutely aware of the haves and have-nots. And I was part of the have-nots, and I made it an absolute mission in my life that I would not be part of the have-nots again because of that experience I had from going to school every single day. It's it's a real weird blend of skills I think I picked up from that experience in school.
I think that would be one of the initial early experiences that formed you, because it would put your chip in your shoulder to be like, fuck you, I don't want to be in a position where I feel like this ever again, where not good enough or lack of self-worth or whatever it is. And that's what gives people that internal drive. And I know, like, I've been very, very broken as a person in the past, and that's what's given me so much drive, because you're driven by pain. And I think pain is a good thing you can lean into, because it's the greatest motivator you have. Like if you're in a gym setting, for example, I'm from a fitness background, if I'm like, do another rep, I can't do another one. Okay, I'll put a gun to your head. Can you do another rep? Like, you're going to do another one, right? So I think that's the context in terms of how you can actually get more out of yourself, is sometimes by motivating yourself from pain. And if you look at an extreme example of this, someone like Elon Musk has an incredibly fucked up background from his family standpoint. And I don't know if you would resonate with this, but I said this to one of my friends, and I was like, I do not know anyone who has a really close relationship with their parents who's very, very successful. You may well be the exception, but out of my people my age, it's incredibly rare they have a very close relationship with their parents or their father. And I think part of that is, as a man, I think you have a desire to try and outdo your parents, and probably a bit of a chip on your shoulder for maybe independence and to prove a point.
Yeah, I mean, my dad died when he was 52, right? So I basically was felt like I was bringing up the family, right? So I sort of took on that responsibility very early. Then I was viewing at school like this have and have not. I was like, man, my dad was an alcoholic as well. So I had this family, like he had this big family, and we were kind of considered the outsiders. So I had this huge chip on my shoulder, and I didn't want to go to university. All I wanted to do was work, get money in, and I was aware of the value of it very quickly. But the challenge you have, and we digress a little bit here, but the challenge you have when you get to like have 3 kids like I've got, and all you want to do is give them everything because, you know, that's not how you were brought up. You then start to, like, my eldest is 10, you then start to realize you're creating like kids that are quite used to having their own way all the time. I mean, my daughter this morning, she was super annoyed because the maid didn't make her the right breakfast, right? Now,
that's a Dubai problem.
Yeah, I had to explain to her that wasn't really a problem. And then she then followed it with asking me that if she could have a phone at school because her 9-year-old pal has. These are discussions I had this morning. That's very different to the way I was brought up. But you need to think about how, I think this is something going on with my wife and I talk about all the time. The great debate is, how do you bring up your kids if you're bringing them into a life that's very different to the one you had, and that you're still going to give them the energy and drive? I don't know the answer to it, but it's going to be the trick.
One of my friends actually said to me, like, when he has sons, he'd be a bit of a dick to them sometimes, just to try and get that out of them. And I think try and give them a bit of a check. And I think there's probably an element of having to do that at some point to reframe people, because I think that is probably one of the most valuable things you can give anyone. And as much as I have maybe chips on my shoulder about certain things, I reframe that as, okay, this is the greatest gift that I was given because it's made me who I am right now. And if I had everything and I was spoiled and silver spoon in the mouth, I wouldn't have that like fuck you to the world type mentality to go and do all the crazy shit I wanted to do.
But I'm curious though, because I've heard you speak about like you drive a Ferrari now, and one of the main reasons you got that was because your dad had a Ferrari, and you wanted to there was sort of one-upmanship there, right? So your dad's got a Ferrari. So it doesn't mean it means you're brought up in a pretty decent life. Why did you have that sort of drive in you? Where did it come from, and why did you want to sort of one up your dad?
So I think a big part of that is I don't like being told no, and independence. So I think when I was, one of the reasons I was 18, 19 years old, I wanted to then go and live in the UK on my own was I wanted to prove a point. I didn't want to be seen as having to like be looked after by my parents or being at anyone's beck and call. All I've ever wanted is time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom. Like, fuck you, I'll do whatever I want. If I want to go to fucking Australia tomorrow, I'm going to go, I'll go business class, first class, whatever. Like, that for me was what I wanted. And I didn't want to be in a position where, oh, like, mum and dad, can I have this? No. And I think that was probably one of the things that really drove me, because my parents have very different values from me. We're from a very different generation. And actually, the entire my family have very different values in a lot of respects than I do. And that's where I think they didn't see things from the perspective the way I did with a lot of things. And I think that independence was the thing I realized I craved more than anything. And probably part of that craving was also an element of maybe status and independence and for like respect from my father, I guess.
Yeah. And how do you get on with him now?
We have a distance relationship,
really?
But like I actually spoke to him on his birthday the other day, and it was probably the best conversation I've had with him in like a long time. But he said something to me maybe 2 years ago, I think I'll probably never forget. And it was, it's amazing what you've achieved, but it's cost you a lot.
Oh, right.
And I was like, fuck, okay.
There was an uppercut there.
Yeah. And I was like, I think one of the things as men we seek is praise from our parents, like just naturally human beings, which is why I'm such a big believer in coaching. We want to do a good job so someone's like pat your back and well done. Yeah. I think that is probably something I always seeked. And I think it got to the point where I achieved so much success relative of like doing all this stuff, yet my brother would do something and it was like, that was bigger than what I'd done, even though mine was like 100 times bigger than his.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know whether that was just, it was expected to me to go and do those certain things or different perspectives.
You're the older one, right?
Yeah.
I think there is a degree of expectation. I get exactly the same with my sister. My sister does a few things. My mum is heaps, which I fully understand, right? Like heaps praise on her, and there's an expectation with me that everything's all right. And it sounds like you've got that as well. They just know you. It's kind of like you've been boxed off as you're all right now.
Yeah, he'll figure himself out. Like, just leave him to it.
Yeah, he's okay. He's okay. He's shown us he's okay.
I'll actually say something to you. This, and I'll shout him out if you watch this guy called Alex Soul, one of my clients. Yeah. He literally, like, I sat down and had a meeting with him with his business or something, and he was like, "How are you, Charlie?" And I was like, no one ever fucking asked me how I am.
It's very true.
So I was like, I don't like, for me, that really like literally just like fucking blindside.
Suck the air out of you.
Yeah, because like no one ever asked how I am.
Yeah. And
I thought that was a very interesting thing that just completely warped my brain, because no one had probably asked me that in probably 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, and obviously one of the things you talk about on the podcast is the ability to be successful in business. In my opinion, the most important trait you need to have is resilience, because it's who can handle get kicked in the balls the longest and keep going. Because if you don't have a problem now, you're going to have a problem in 6 months, and it's just who can handle the problems the longest and just keep going, who eventually wins. It's like war of attrition.
Yeah.
So I think that was something that really took me back.
Okay. So going back to your life then, so you didn't go to university, you didn't want to follow that traditional path or anything?
When I was 21, 22, I thought I'd completely ruined my life.
Wow.
Because all my friends were rolling out of university, going to get like really good jobs at corporate companies. And I was like, I have completely fucked it, because I was making like 14 to 16 grand a year as a basic salary as a letting agent. My yearly income was maybe 30 grand a year. And I was like, my goal by the time I was 30, this was my life goal, was to make 100 grand a year. And I'm like, I'm fucking winning. And then I obviously end up surpassing that. And I think that's interesting in terms of your goals are depending upon what you're exposed to. So I'm a big believer in the law of exposure. So your children growing in Dubai will have very different goals from someone who lives in Dorking in Surrey.
Yeah.
Because if you're used to like everyone has maids and people turn up to school in fucking Bentleys and Rolls Royces, the bar of what normal is much higher, which in a lot of respects I think could give them a lot more drive, because the standard of what is acceptable for you to be good is so much greater. So I think there's two sides to the coin of that.
Correct. Yeah, and also, I mean, I've got 2 girls and a boy, right? I sometimes find it a bit easier to talk to my son about going out and set, like, I'll give you an example. Just this weekend, he's raising money for charity for his school, and he has to sell these healthy snacks, right? And so we're driving back. He's played rugby in the morning. We're driving back from his rugby game, and he said to me, "Oh God, I've still got to sell like 4 of these boxes of snacks." And I was like, "Well, who haven't you visited yet?" And he was like, "Oh, weirdly enough," he pointed like a couple of houses. So we just pulled over on the way back. I said, go and sell them now. But he said, "But I don't have them on me." And it was just the easiest conversation to have. Whereas sometimes with my daughters, I don't find that as...
So what did you say to him?
I said, just go and knock on the door, sell the biscuits. You sell the biscuits. I mean, of course.
Did you come and deliver them later on?
Yeah. A kid knocking on the door, saying it's 25 dirhams a biscuit. The first guy took one. The next guy said, "Well, how many have you got?" He said, "I've got 3 left." He said, "I'll take the lot." What, of course they were going to say that. Who says no to a kid?
It's like I get fleeced by the Girl Scouts in America whenever I'm there. So I end up getting a $20 bill for like one cookie.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll just keep it like...
With the girls, we've done lemonade stalls, which were a roaring success. But I haven't, the door-to-door with my eldest, I haven't done that yet. And I find myself sometimes just finding that a bit of an easier chat with my son than I do with my daughters, which I want to address, and I can't, I don't want to treat them differently. But my wife, she built and sold a DE&I business, for God's sake. So I need to make sure there's a level playing field there. But these are the things that I think we can teach them to ensure that they've got that drive underneath them. Also, we spend a lot of time in Sri Lanka, as you know, and there they get to see quite visibly. And Helen's been great at this. What the have and have not. And we've donated clothes and toys to charities, etc. So that gives them quite a humbling sort of view of the world, and we're going to continue to do that. For as long as we can, for as long as they're interested in going to Sri Lanka.
You talk about that law of exposure thing again, right? Yeah. Like if you live in Dubai and that's all you know, you live in a bubble, which is respectfully very superficial in this perfect Truman Show world. Whereas almost if you drive into certain parts inland and you see like where some of the workers live, it's not quite as glamorous and exciting.
But you don't really hang, you drive through it, you don't really hang around there much. You can do eat packages, etc. I mean, the school are pretty good at doing this, but the reality is, they're exposed to very wealthy people all the time. I mean, someone asked me about my sports now, how the sports day going to be, and I mean, I've got to go up against John Obi Mikel, play for Chelsea. It's like this different level of people that you've got there at school.
So dad's sports day.
Yeah. Like one of my coaches gave me a diet so you can win on dad's sports day, and I was like, if you've seen who I'm up against, play centre mid for Chelsea. It's but that's a different world that they live out here.
You mentioned your children. Then, what's your plan with them? And social media, and even with your own brand. So the reason I asked that is you have, from my opinion, I see 2 different types of entrepreneurs. You have someone like Grant Cardone, where he's basically molded his children into fucking superstars, or you have someone like Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, I don't even know what his wife and kids look like.
Yeah. So that's a good question. And so my eldest daughter at the moment, she's basically brilliant at this game Roblox. Do you know Roblox?
No.
It's like a kid's game. And basically there's a game on there called Dress to Impress, where you dress up for models and they do catwalk shows and everyone rates them. She's really good at this game. So she's built like a YouTube channel doing different dresses and dances and showing people, like just giving tips on how people can be really good at this game. Now, I think that's brilliant. In fact, I think she's got such an amazing business mind. So I've been focused, I'm quite comfortable talking to her about building out her channel, consistency. In fact, I find myself saying a lot of the stuff that you and I would talk about, don't worry, it compounds over time. Just, you got to keep doing it every day. And her views have gone up now. So every day she sort of comes down and she goes, "Daddy, my views have gone up to 40. She's looking at 1,500 people now viewing her channel. And she's nearly got 100 subscribers. She's over the moon. So she gets it. And I'm quite happy for her to be exposed to that side of social media. But anyone who's watched Adolescence, have you watched that yet?
I've watched part of it and I got bored.
Yeah. So a lot of people now are talking about that. I kind of feel in the UK you're a lot more exposed to that's kind of the hate element, online hate element than you are here. I don't know why I feel like that, but I just feels you don't get school shootings. You don't hear about the stuff going on over here, right? So at the moment that we're quite comfortable with that, but what we're always conscious of is the amount of screen time they can have. And you'll always, like, I don't know about you, but you grew up in the countryside. I grew up in the countryside. Going out playing sport, kicking a ball, playing rugby, playing football, doing something with myself. kids now, they just want to, these screens are designed to keep them on it. Next thing you know, they're not doing anything, and we're always conscious that they're not going out, meeting people, playing in the playgrounds, etc. That's one thing that I'm very scared about with social media, is the absorbing element of it.
I think it's the ability to be manipulated and you don't realize you're being manipulated. So even you talk about
happens to us.
Talk about the adolescence thing, there's a lot of controversy hypothetically around it, that there's white kids stabbing people in that. How many white kids go around stabbing people in the UK in a non-racist way? There's a lot of controversy around that in like certain parts of the media. And I think that's where sometimes you can be careful the narrative of some things that get pushed out, because something I'm a believer of, and I'm very careful of what information I take in, because your thoughts aren't really your own thoughts. So the reactions of the things that are put in front of you and what you're exposed to again. So it's like, if you can try and control what your kids bring in, if they only watch business YouTube and certain types of information, and you can try and spoon feed them the right information, I guess.
We just need the screen time thing. We need to keep an eye on, like the sites that they go on. We need to keep an eye on. But the kids are smart, man. They work out a way. I found out the other day that my eldest daughter is like messaging. She's worked out a way to message half the family. So they're all getting like, "Oh, Clemmy's fine." They're telling me how my daughter is when I'm speaking to them on WhatsApp. I'm like, "How the hell is she doing this?" And they're showing me the messages that she's sending, because she's got an email address at school. And with that, she's managed to get on messaging apps. It's a full-time job keeping on top of it. Trust me. So, for yourself, like first of all, why did you want to go to university?
I did, but this is what's interesting now that I run online businesses and teach people business. I was pretty shit at school. So like the reason for me of that is,
what, academically?
I got like C's or something in A levels. Like I didn't really, like I did enough not to get in trouble, because my parents never really pushed me, which is something probably I do have a chip on my shoulder about. It's like, when I have kids, it's like, what do you want to do? I'll make you the fucking greatest person in the world, whatever that is. If you're not sure, I'm just going to push you in this direction. We'll find out. Like, see what happens. I think particularly young men, I think, want direction and clarity, and they know roughly the things they want in life. They might not know the specific way to get that. But I think as a father, I think that's one of the things to push people towards. The reason I didn't go to university, actually probably my parents' narrative was slightly against it, but also that I wanted to like actually get real world experience, because my experience at college and at school was I'm learning things from people who haven't done the things I want to do.
You were thinking about that, even you were aware of that then?
Straight away. I was like, well, you're teaching business, but you work in a sixth form college, dude. So it's like, this isn't, you're not like learning from someone who's actually done it. And I think for me, one of the biggest things I've always looked for from a very young age was, has the person done the thing I want to do? If they do, they know something that I don't know yet.
So you're always been incredibly self-aware.
Yeah, and I remember, like, I mentioned the speed of implementation. I remember one of my dad, I was lucky in terms of like some of the people I was exposed to from my dad's friends who were wealthy and successful. I remember one of my dad's friends had a thing on his desk and it said, "Do it now." And he always just be like, "You just got to fuck whatever it is, just do it as quick as possible." I think that's one of the things that ingrained into my mindset, which is like speed of implementation. Because ultimately, if you look at like business, it is speed. Whoever can execute the right plan the quickest ultimately wins. And I think that was where I think the early thoughts and the early framework that's almost like mapped into your brain has a huge determination in terms of what happens in your life.
That's definitely ingrained with you, because you're well known for doing things straight away. I know from the time I've known you, you just go straight away, you implement. Do you think though that leads, doing everything now and being in a rush all the time, do you think that leads to not enjoying the moment?
It'd be hard to say, to counter that argument. I would agree. So I would say one of the things I wrote the other day with journaling is like, be where your feet are, because that's something that I'll give some context to this. We had a sick mastermind event the other day and we were on this fucking massive super yacht, and JP de Villiers was there and he was like, "Oh, this is really good." And he's like, "You're already thinking about the next thing," because you could see me just like looking off into the distance thinking about stuff. And I was thinking about what I wanted to do next. And I was like, he's like, "Dude, you just need to like actually think about what you're doing right now rather than like what you're going to do in 6 months' time." And I am hyper aware of that, but I think that's also where things are a blessing and a curse in life in some regards. So whatever is a strength can also be a weakness, but it's learning how to become aware of that to control it. So like I said to you, from a business standpoint, if you are like a bulldozer at the beginning of your business, it can work quite well. If you then start doing that and you have a bigger business, it causes anarchy and you break loads of stuff and cause loads of problems.
So you're not the best boss when you're a bulldozer?
No, because you create loads of problems and it's really unorganized and it's a shit show. So I think that's where you end up with a very dysfunctional business, which I've had multiple times because of that attitude, which is where if you don't have clarity in what you're doing and you're just like hammering at loads of different things all the time, the people behind you don't even know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And I see that also in people's businesses I work with now. I spend probably 90% of the time being like, forget all this shit. That thing there is the problem. Just do that. Do not do anything else. Do not go past go. Do that and your business will grow. And the more I've done that in my own business the last 6 months, the faster the growth we've seen, the less hassle and stress I've had, and the easier life has become.
Okay. So how did that person then fall into, you said you were in a real estate job, and like, how did that person that you just described then fall into and cope with a real estate job in rural England?
With a lot of pain, and I fucking hated it. So I can't think of a word to describe it anymore. Of that for me was like modern day slavery in prison. So that's an exaggeration to some degree, but it was bad. So like I remember when I first started working, my basic salary was £12,000 a year. I would work from 8 a.m. till 6:30 p.m. It would take me an hour to get to work, an hour to get home.
Yeah.
So like, and then I had to work Saturday 9 till 5 as well.
Yeah.
6 days a week.
Yeah.
So, and my bosses were a bit of a dick at the time. So originally I worked for an independent company, and I also learned a lot from them, which I have credit to them for that, because I remember I would turn up at 8 a.m. I would get there before anyone else so I could steal all the leads on the computer and hack the system to win, which is why I became the manager, because I cheated. But you play the game, right?
Yeah.
And then apologise to any of my colleagues who watch this back. But I remember I'd go into the office at 8 a.m. He'd already been there for fucking hour and a half. And I was like, well, that's why he's the boss. That's why he's in charge. That's why he has a nice car. And that's why you start to see the patterns in life of, okay, the people who get here early and work harder are the people who are actually running the business. So maybe if I want to be really successful, there's clearly a direct correlation between hard work and doing the difficult things rather than just like coasting and turning up at the last minute. Yeah. And I think, again, the law of exposure I mentioned multiple times is like, can you see patterns in terms of what success looks like? And I think it's, if you've got 50 people who are very successful, they will done it 50 different ways, but there's probably a lot of character traits. Probably 90% of them are exactly the same.
Yeah. And outworking individuals is probably the clearly evident, the number one thing you spotted, right?
Yeah. And I think for anyone, something I think about a lot is like brute force violence. So it's like, say, for example, our own content on social media, we post 3 long form YouTube videos a week, 3 podcasts a week. We do maybe 10 shorts a day on Instagram, fucking multiple reels. We do LinkedIn, Facebook, and email every day. It's a lot.
I speak from experience on this because I think I'm connected to you in 5 different profiles, and sometimes my entire feed is you.
And then plus ads on top of it. So it's like
wow.
And that's where I actually saw a funny post, and I took a screenshot of it and I sent it to our videographer being like, Alex Ramosi put a post up yesterday and it was from 4 years ago with someone commented being like, I can't believe this channel only has 2,000 subscribers. Yeah. And like, we get that all the time. And I sent it to him, I was like, this looks familiar. Yeah. And he said like, this is exactly what people say about you. It's like, I'm going to screenshot this and we'll look back in 4 years time. Yeah. Because the reality is, we mentioned earlier about like the ability for resilience and to get kicked in the balls. It's delayed gratification to keep doing the thing and you're not getting the reward right now. And I'm starting to see some of that reward now from some of that hard work. And this is where, like says for your daughter as well, with like long form content, that each video starts to have more leverage and more leverage and more leverage and more leverage. So each time you do it, you get more positive reinforcement. And then when you start to add like nerdy tracking software into stuff, and like, oh, that person actually booked a sales call from that video. Let's make some more. You then get positive reinforcement. I think that for me is always like one of the other feedback loops I've looked for to be successful is input and output equation. So if I look back at when I was a real estate agent, I understood very quickly, okay, how can I win this game? How can I be the highest performer in the company and then get paid more than my colleagues? If I get to the office before everyone else and I get to the computer which has all the right move and Zoopla leads, I take all the best ones. Who gets all the money? Me. If I pick up the phone quicker than anyone else, probably same in recruitment, I have all the leads on the phone. I now control all lead flow of this entire office. So therefore I am going to win. And that's like always the game of how I've thought is like, how can I control the traffic in that there or now in virtual online game of what I'm doing and trying to gamify that process.
Gotcha. So when you were in a estate agency, were you keeping fit then?
I was, but I was struggling to the degree that I couldn't do it to the degree I wanted because I was working a lot. And I was still training, but I wasn't to the degree I wanted. And I would say probably 3 to 4 years into that is when I started getting into really good shape again. And that was the first time I did a photo shoot, got like a really good 6-pack. I was in great shape. And I realized the biggest thing that completely changed my life is if I just pay someone to tell me what to do to get an end result, and I do exactly what I tell them to do, I then get the end result.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is literally the ultimate hack to life. You find the person who has done the thing you want. How do I do this? Here's some money.
Yeah.
Do what they tell you to do.
Yeah.
Collapse time, end result. I was like, okay, where else can I apply this? And that's essentially the exact same framework I then did into business. So it's like, what else do I not know?
Yeah.
And then just started to learn and acquire skills from there.
So that was your light bulb moment, and that's when you thought about how you're going to get out of the estate agency. At what point, how long into estate agency did you decide this wasn't for you, or did you never want to be there in the beginning?
I got overly glamorized into it because one of my friends from school, I'll shout out to him if you watch this, Ollie Adams. I remember he got a job working for Knight Frank, and he had a suit and a nice Audi A5. I was like, that seems pretty cool. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to apply for a job as an estate agent. And I applied and then got a job, and I was like, I hate this. And then this is terrible. And I would also say from a business context that if someone tells you they have a strategy in their business that's doing really well, they're only taking like the tip of the iceberg, then take all the other bullshit that comes with it. So like, people will never say the full story. So transparently, that's what pulled me into it. There's elements of it I enjoyed, and I actually looked to set my own agency at one point.
Did you?
Because I always knew I wanted to go and do my own thing.
Yeah.
But then I also realized this has a cap on it, and this is also problematic. Whereas also, if I have an online business, I can sell to the entire planet. I can also be wherever I want. And this has way more scale and leverage and less headaches than a fixed premises location in Surrey.
Gotcha. So what was the year when you decided to leave estate agency?
I left, my day of independence was 25th February 2019 was the day I walked out. And I say I walked out because basically the way it worked is if I had handed in my notice, I would get paid 50% for working a month because they don't pay you a commission. So I was like, well, fuck this. So it was quite funny because I was manager of the branch. I literally bowled in the morning, was like, I'm leaving, just took all my shit and then just left. And there's a video on my Instagram. I just went to,
I watched this video.
I went to Right Hill, and I just wanted to fucking talk. Because like, this is what's called like an inflection point. If like, I've just walked out on this job, I'm going to do all this crazy shit, and people thought I was mental. So I was like, I need to document this. And so I've been documenting this stuff for years. And then I remember going home, and I remember having a call that completely changed my life and my framework of everything. I remember literally looking out of my garden, and my area manager at the time called me, and she's like, you can't quit, you have to come back. I was like, no, I fucking don't. I don't work here anymore. And I was like, I never have to listen to anyone ever again. I could do whatever I want, but I have to be willing to back myself, and you're going to live by the sword and die by the sword, and you just have to be willing to like do what it takes. And that's where like I made a commitment to myself that I will see this through, and I'm not going back to being a fucking stage. And I think for most people, they are so throttled by fear, they can't understand how to make good decisions. So if I left and it didn't work, what would happen? I go back to exactly where I was as another station. People trying to hire me all the time. So I wasn't going to, like, worst case scenario, back to where I was anyway. Best case scenario is I end up moving to Dubai, making loads of money and do whatever you want. So people need to stop like worrying like, what if it goes wrong, but what if it goes right?
Did you have a contingency plan, sort of monetary wise? Did you have
not massively, maybe like 20, 30 grand or something side, not like huge amounts. I was in a fortunate position because I had done the Gary Vee side hustle of I'd built my online fitness coaching business whilst working full time in this other business.
Okay, that's really important for people to understand.
And they were so retarded that they had absolutely no idea I was doing this. And to be honest, I look back now and I regret this. I bottled leaving for probably 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
So a guy called Mike Reed, who's my videographer now, who's worked for me since 2018. I remember distinctly being in the car driving to Muscleworks Gym in Alberton, being like, I need to fucking quit. I need to quit. And he's like, don't be a pussy, just fucking leave. And this went on for a long period of time. So I understand it's a difficult decision to make. But I should have ripped that Band-Aid off sooner because I was in the worst place you can be. I was comfortable. I was maybe making 10 grand a month online coaching, and I had a full-time job. I was making 70, 80,000 pounds a year. So
you were out earning.
So I was out earning at that point. So I was like, well, but I had no pressure and I had no stress. But because I had no pressure and no stress, I wasn't really pushing myself. But then I burnt the boats, went all in, and then my business just exploded because I had no other option. Because I was driven by pain and fear and like, what if this goes wrong? I need to go faster, I need to go faster. And with that, one of the things we spoke about is like anxiety. I had to learn how to handle that anxiety of like, what if someone says no on a sales call? What if you have a payment processor shut down which is going to cost you £250,000 a year, which happened. Like loads of shit goes wrong. But it's just your ability to then be able to understand, okay, this happened. How can I reframe this and what can I learn?
Do you get anxiety?
Yes, not as much as I used to. If I'm radically transparent, I used to be crippled with fucking anxiety.
Really?
And that's where I would use all out action to try and like outwork that. And that's something that is probably partly also driven by insecurity. So I would say, someone asked me, when did you get rid of imposter syndrome? And it was probably like 18 months, 2 years ago, maybe.
Really?
And I'd already done 10, 12 million sales online at that point and like done all the shit. And I think that was probably being driven by a lack of not feeling enough.
Okay.
And I think that's where people have different things that drive them. I know how to like psychologically manipulate myself to go and do the work. And I've spoken to some therapists about this as well, about like, I would like beat myself with a fucking stick to go and do the thing and push myself way harder than anyone else will. And that's when I say to people, it's like, even when I've taken sales calls with people before, I'm like, I will like really have a pop at people when I do, like, you want my hat, but you're not willing to do what it fucking takes. So like, I've put it all on the line multiple times, and I know you have. And that's the reality of like, people listening to this will relate to that if you've done it as well, because you know it is difficult. And I think that's also when people meet other people who are successful in business, you also know there's like an unwritten code of success of like, this dude's been through some shit as well. He's been through the fire. Yeah, he's been through the fire, right? You know, you've done the fucking firewalk. And I think that's why I think people also who are like entrepreneurial is almost like a brotherhood in some respect, because you just know.
So I'm intrigued though. So what, with your anxiety, what do you think was like? Was it the chip on your shoulder you had about your dad and the relationship you had there? Was it something else driving you?
I think it was insecurity. I think it was running out of money. I think it was not being good enough. I think it was not achieving the things I wanted to achieve. I think something that probably drives me now is in 30, 40 years time, like, could I have done more? Did I really do what the best I could have done? I've changed probably my thought process that in the last 4 to 6 months a lot, about trying to work smarter rather than just harder, because if you row harder in the wrong direction, you're not necessarily getting to where you want to be. And that's where it takes, I think, a lot of perspective shifting, thinking like, what do I really want and why? And one of the games that I know every man plays is the external validation game. I'm telling this from a guy who's fucking 100 kilos with abs and drives a fucking Ferrari and does all this stupid shit. And like, you seek all these things because you think it will make you happy. In the reality, it won't. And one of the...
For a few seconds it does. And then...
and it is cool. And I think I read the book Happy Sexy Millionaire by Steve Bartlett, and I was like, the first chapter, I was like, fuck. I was like, this is me. Because it's like, when I was like 25, I was like, oh, if I have this, I have this, I have this, I'll be like happy to do that. And like, nothing changes. And like, you have this, I want this thing next. And when you have it, like, well, I still kind of feel the same. And I think that's where it's also like, a lot of entrepreneurial people are slightly broken, but you have to go through the fire of doing all this external validation shit to realize that wasn't actually the thing I wanted. It was the person I became in the process to get those things that I really desired.
I've spoken to quite a few successful entrepreneurs, and a lot of them go through this buying everything they can, because that's exactly it. They thought they wanted this as a kid, and they're dressed head to toe in Prada, or they've got Rolls Royces and yachts, etc. And the ones that have come out the other side don't wear a watch. You know, they're completely they're understated. That's how you can show true wealth now. Apparently, being completely understated, not even wearing a watch. So I might have to throw the Rolex away. So look, Charlie, really, really interested to know that those early stages of entrepreneurial growth, because you obviously went all in. You said you've got 30 grand in the bank. What made you then want to sort of, scale, and how did you scale?
The first step for me was just understanding like basic maths of traffic of like, okay, where are my leads coming from? Where are we selling fitness programs to? How can we essentially make more money? So predominantly at that time, it was Instagram. This was 2019, 2020. And then I started to learn Facebook ads and paid advertising. So to date, we've spent $1.6 million on Facebook ads, something like quite a lot. And it's zigging when other people zag. So what happened in 2020 was COVID, which you talk about anxiety as an entrepreneur, is when you're running a business from your shed in your garden, and then suddenly and you sell fitness programs to people in the gym, and there is no gyms open. You're like, well, this is going to be interesting. In hindsight, it was actually the best thing that happened, and it accelerated the online platforms and space. But what that actually gave me was a window of opportunity, because I saw something that other people didn't see. Most people were shitting themselves about paid advertising. So they weren't spending money, they weren't running ads. I realized this and was like, this is incredibly cheap to run Facebook ads, incredibly cheap. And there was also a like a slightly illegal bot thing called Direct Heroes at the time. So it was like an autoresponder in Instagram.
Yeah.
And I have loads of weird, like, nerdy shit. We still kind of do like this now. And basically,
you didn't realize how lucky you were.
Yeah,
then, right?
And essentially, we were getting leads for like £1 from the US, like good quality. They were firing in on Instagram DM ads to this autoresponder that was then booking them for sales calls. We were signing up so many fitness clients that we couldn't actually even handle the volume. I remember having to sign up 7 to 8 coaches to join our fitness business just to handle the amount of clients coming on. I was like begging people just to coach people because we had so many clients coming through the door.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I think, like, if I had the experience that I do now, I'd printed money on the back end of it. And I think that's what I say for anyone is the biggest tax you pay right now isn't to the government, it's in ignorance because you don't know what you don't know. And I think in hindsight, it's funny, but it's not funny. But that was one of the big defining moments, I think, in my career, because I looked and I could see what was happening and I just did the opposite of everyone else.
Okay. And so who were your early influences when you got the business going? Who were you listening to all the time?
So when I used to drive around in my car in Surrey as a estate agent, I used to listen to Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone. So I used to listen to Gary V and read all his books. And I remember he'd say document, don't create. So that's basically what I was doing. And then Grant Cardone was on like sales, entrepreneurship, like leadership. And I just binged on podcasts of that. So like I saw my car as like my commute on the M25 as like a university on wheels. And that was really what I focused on doing. And this is what I say to people, like the most important thing you actually can do is like your allocation of your resources, of your time and focus are critical. So if I just fast forward that to 2022, I remember I just moved to Dubai. A friend of mine from the UK came out. He was sitting on the sofa watching football. I was watching a sales training video on my iPad on my kitchen table. And he's like, Charlie, he's like, do you know why you're really successful and why I'm in the position I'm in? I'm like, why? And he was like, look what you're doing right now and look what I'm doing right now. And I just thought that was a very profound moment because I'm constantly trying to learn new skills or pay down the ignorance tax of what I don't know. Whereas most people are trying to numb themselves with pointless entertainment.
In the fitness space, especially though, where did you see like the gap that you wanted to jump into?
The attention arbitrage of social media. As soon as I realized, well, like, dude, I could post on this thing for free and then sell to people. Well, that's easy. So then, like, well, if I just post more and I make better content, and then again, USP at the time, this was maybe 2019. Actually, statistic: 80% of all videos filmed in the entire world are on an iPhone. Random fact. But back then, everyone was using shitty like iPhone 6s. I had a videographer filming like a DSLR Sony A6 or whatever. So like my stuff just banged and stood out straight away because of the level of quality and the level of detail that we were going to. And I think that's one of the things that really differentiated me. And we had like graphics and muscle pop stuff coming up and like wild stuff. And we focused on that and then just hammering client results in front of people. So one of the things I think from an internet marketing perspective, I think all the time is proof over promises. We just hammer people with social proof and then credibility, you've done the thing. And at that point, it's like, well, this dude's in great shape. He's got all these people in great shape. I want to get in great shape. Who else am I going to go to? Same thing when it comes to business. Like this guy's got a sick business. He's helped all these other people. He can clearly help me as well.
He's the right person. So tell me about the initial days. Like, how long did it take you to scale then?
From probably summer 2020, I think we went from 50K to then the following year, November 2021, we did $330,000. So we did like, was that 6X?
A month?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was a pretty wild ride. And I say a lot of that is also limiting beliefs. So people don't realize they have glass ceilings above their head. So I remember distinctly having this conversation with one of my best friends, a guy called Frank Den Blanken. And he was one of the early influencers who warped my brain. So I remember I went to an event in the US, and this is why I'm such a big believer in events, because they will change people's lives. Like when you physically see someone in person and like, oh, like how much money do you make? Oh, like 50K a month. He's like, how much money do you make? Like a couple of million? Like what? And I had that experience where I spoke at a fitness event here, the OT, and I think 2021, someone asked, like, I was on stage and someone asked, oh, how much money do you make? Like 130 grand a month? And they were like, like what the fuck? Like what the fuck? Because that was unheard of in fitness at the time. But I just thought that was normal because that's all I knew. But I remember Frank saying to me, like, I was like, I'm doing like 50 grand a month. He's like, what's your goal for next month? I was like, 60. He's like, don't be a pussy. He's like, you can do 70. I was like, oh, I was like, I'll try. And I think we got to like 78. I was like, this is insane. And I think that's where you need someone who's going to push you. And I think one of the things that like, I can see this in people, and I think he can see that in me, when you're ahead of someone and you can see someone who's got the drive and they have that spark, they just need like to fucking be ignited. That's a beautiful thing you could do for someone. And that's one of the greatest things you could do. That's one of the best things he ever did for me. And I'll be incredibly grateful. I think that was a big defining moment. I think from then it was just a game of how do I scale this thing up without breaking it? And also, I'd almost say losing yourself in the process of it, because when you go from, I talked about this in our event, I like 100x my monthly income in like 2 years. So I was making $3 or $4 grand a month as an estate agent, and I was making 300. Like, it's quite difficult to almost compartmentalize from a financial standpoint, like how that really works. And I think a lot of people can lose themselves in that process.
Did you invest in mentors in the early days of the business?
I did, and I had some mixed advice in terms of what I would do now. So in hindsight, I was pushed to do a cheap, low-ticket 8-week program, which was like £100. In hindsight, what I should have done is sold expensive programs out of the gate, and I'd made way more money. So that's really predominantly what we help people do, because although I had like a decent audience, if I have a decent audience and I sell a high price point, you make loads of money. If you have a decent audience, you sell a low price point, you make okay money. And that's where the problem with customers is always the people who pay the least. So when you sell cheap programs, you end up with cheap people who then are like, they want to have a phone call about the £40 fucking workout program they bought. It's like, dude, it doesn't work like that.
Well, I guess one of the challenges that from talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, and what I've faced as well in the early stage of my business, I'm curious what your answer is here, is that how the founder cannot be the bottleneck of their own business, right? So when you got going, I imagine the business was all very much about you. You were in shape. How this is what you do. I mean, what's it called? The business?
Charlie Johnson Fitness.
Charlie Johnson Fitness. You got your name slammed all over it. Okay,
that's why I didn't do that the second one I learned.
So how did you then get beyond like not having yourself involved in every sales call? How did you stop being the bottleneck in your own business?
Through pain and realizing I hate certain things, to be transparent. So one of my favorite sayings is pain is knowledge really fast. I distinctly remember sitting in my office shed in Surrey in the garden, and a sales call got booked, and I was like, for fuck's sake, I don't want to take another sales call. And I was like, this isn't a good sign for your business when you have people who want to buy from you and you don't want to talk to them anymore. And I was like, I should probably fix this. So I was like, I was maybe doing like 30, 40 sales calls a week at that time, which was a lot. And I also had 210 coaching clients one-to-one, which is like...
You were doing those?
Which is insane. And so I was like, okay, cool. Who can take some sales calls for me? Who's good at sales? I was like, okay, my friend Jack works in timeshare in Mexico. There's COVID. They got nothing to do. So I was like, call him up. I was like, what do you think about doing this? And he was like, well, I don't really want to do it, but I know some people who will. And then we basically built another business, which was a sales call center in Mexico. That was at one point taking like 80 sales calls a day for me in our fitness programs, which was fucking wild. And then we were selling for a lot of other coaches, and we still do there. And that's where that just came from necessity. But that opened one big bottleneck. And I'd say the second big limiting belief I had is that my ego and probably pride thought everyone wanted to be coached by me. No one cared about Charlie Johnson. They just want the end result. So I remember actually, ironically, I was on a flight on the way to Dubai, and I wrote up a contract for the first person I hired as a coach, who came in, and then he started to take some of the clients off of me. And I was like, I've now completed the game. Like, leads come in, I have nothing to do with it. They get booked into the sales calls. I don't take the sales calls. Someone else coaches them. I just get paid. Like, I now have a business, no longer a job. And there was a moment where I think it was my 30th birthday. I was sitting in the Zinghi, whatever it is, Chinese restaurant on the Madinat in Dubai. I was sitting there at dinner, and like a £3,000 PayPal payment came through. I was like, fuck. I was like, I've done it. Like, the thing works, and like, I'm just living my life. And ultimately, that was the thing I always wanted, was just the freedom to not be stuck at the desk or doing the damn thing all the time. And I think one of the biggest things I see with people with their businesses, they create a prison. And I was actually like writing a journal about it this morning of like, what's the thing I want? It's like freedom. How can I engineer my business more for leverage and freedom, which is the things I want, which is why a big core component of that is long form content. Because like this video podcast will go on the internet and be played after we're dead. So for me, like, okay, that's a good use of time.
Did you, like, you obviously gone straight into the online fitness business. You've alluded to the fact you've got another business in Mexico now. Any other sort of entrepreneur, did you start getting the entrepreneurial bug then? Because I know me in the early days, particularly when things started to go well, anyone that knows me around sort of that between 2014 and 2016 will see that will see me get quite a few things up and running. Problem was, I completely stretched myself. I've opened up some businesses that weren't my interest. Things just withered on the vine. I became super stressed because I became a jack of all trades, not really a master of none. Long story short, I ended up shutting down quite a few things after spending a lot of money on them. Has any of that bug hit you?
I would say all entrepreneurs have entrepreneurial ADHD, and one of my favorite sayings is, an idiot will beat a genius when a genius is trying to do 5 things and an idiot just does 1. So my goal is to try and be the genius who just does 1 thing now rather than like many. So I've tried everything, and I have done everything that anyone could ever think of, from like creating supplement brands to trying to sell those. I remember making wrist cuffs that were manufactured in China.
Wrist cuffs?
Yeah, that had like my logos on that I was getting shipped to me, and then we were doing like drop shipping. And then I remember sitting there in my shed in my garden and Surrey, and I was like, I made like £20 on each of these we sell. I was like, we sell £3,000 coaching programs on 80% margin. I was like, well, fuck, don't I just focus on selling more of these? I was like, this is really dumb. And this is where I think a lot of these things are sometimes ego thing, because you want to have your name on this thing and it looks cool on social media. And I say this from someone who knows the biggest people in the fitness industry, that a lot of these big things you think make loads of money, they don't make any fucking money. And the people who are in them, they want to get out of them. So I had like cuffs and wraps, and then I also set up a CBD business, which was another terrible idea.
Wow.
And this is where...
What was the CBD business?
It was called Herb Guru. And it's just a terrible name. And that flopped. I think we sold like 4 or 5 of them. And I think this is just like, you come up with these stupid ideas of things. And like, way I try and think about all decisions is either now just trying to wait on it, or like, what's the actual long-term plan? So like, I'm building another business at the moment, which is a software business, which kind of interlinks with what we're doing. And then my goal is to then exit that in a few years' time. So there's a clear strategy of what we want to do with this, rather than like, oh, I'm just going to try and cash, like, I know what I'm trying to do for this, and having a clear plan, rather than like, oh, this seems like a good idea because so-and-so's doing it. And I think for most people, you should literally just focus on doing one thing. And the biggest mistake I see so many people make, particularly in my space in fitness, is they have a fitness business, and then someone starts wanting to pay them to help them with their business, and they start doing some of that, and then the fitness business fucks up, and then it's like, pick one. Like, if I'm radically transparent, I probably should never have started coaching coaches. I shouldn't have started doing that. I should just focus on my B2C business and just gone all in on that, and because it's a bigger market. But I was very passionate about business, and I love doing that, and I'm in too deep to now turn back. So I think, in hindsight, I don't think I've ever said this publicly, I should have just focused on our fitness business full time. I think this is where you only have so much energy and focus that you can give. You cannot grow 2 things at the same time. So I think for anyone listening to this, pick which one has the highest output for what you want the next 3 to 5 years aligned with your life, and just do that thing and kill the other one.
It's so your business, I think Forbes, you were in Forbes, weren't you? So your online business absolutely blew up. Charlie Johnson Fitness, you got coaches working. How many coaches do you have working for you?
8.
8 coaches. So business is flying, roaring success. What then led you to set up this other business, which now coaches coaches? What's the journey there?
So I never intended on it. And I remember a good friend of mine, a guy called Antoine Blanco, who's actually quite famous, popular here in Dubai now. He basically begged me to help him. So he was our first ever client, and I was like, look, dude, I don't do this. And he's like, no, I really want you to help me. Just help me. I'll pay you whatever.
Trade secrets.
Yeah. I was like, just like, tell me what you want. I was like, it's this much. It was like 14, 50 grand. And he just paid me. And I was like, well, that's easy. And then like, I was like, okay, cool. So we're in. And then I really enjoyed doing it. And I was like, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. And I had way more fun doing that. And I remember sitting in Jumeirah Marina Gate in Dubai, and literally with a pen and paper, and just planned out the whole thing, like 30 minutes, what I was going to do with 7-figure scaling systems. And I just did it.
So that's the name of your coaching business.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people get so, I'd be interested in your input on this, so anal on business plans for the next 3 to 5, like, dude, like, it doesn't work like that, because particularly in online space, things change like that. And this is why the people who are teaching things that worked in 2020 are completely fucked, because what works right now isn't even what worked 6 months ago. Like the things we're doing to AI like right now is insane. And the ability you have to scale a business right now is insane. But it's only if you know. And the people who don't know are people who are going to get absolutely flattened in the next 2 to 3 years.
Correct. I think for our business, AI is just, recruitment is I think there's always going to be a need for the personal contact. There's always going to be a degree of trust on the recruiter, but the systemization, the process where you have staff,
it's leverage.
Tools, everything they'll be replacing humans. I mean, I've already sort of restructured my business massively, so it's offshored and it's automated as much as possible. And that whole automation part, we're just constantly trying to find new tools and tech to go through there. And I think if you're not on that, I've actually got anxiety that if we're not on it, then we're going to be sort of pushed to one side. Because your clients, your customers, they're taking it all on board. They're looking at how they can save money, and you've just basically got to plug into that. There's an opportunity for you to become, I feel, the person providing those tools and technology and the knowledge, rather than be taken over for it. And that's where I'm engineering our business.
It's positioning. If you're seen as the AI recruitment agency who's the most advanced in the world with that, are you going to make more money? Yeah. Because people want to be driven to that. Be like, oh, cool, maybe use some certain type of AI screening system to find the best candidates and do personality profile audits against all the best 500 companies that are similar to us. I don't know, whatever it might be.
The way I look at it is that, right, what are our problems? What are the problems our customers have? And if we can develop a tool that works, we can use, there's already AI systems out there. Essentially, if we can have a tool that fits into that and that solves those problems that that we have, that our customers have, then we're just going to scale our business. We're going to get more retained revenue. So that's the way I'm looking at it. And I think a lot of people are. The reality is I've restructured our business in 15 years 3 times. I've gone through the big business in Dubai. They had 55 people. Hated it, by the way. So then a much leaner, offshore, technology-driven operation. And I'll go again and again. And I don't think you shouldn't be afraid to sort of burn the bridges and change your business as and when it's needed. I think there's a lot of, particularly in recruitment, where it's traditionally driven by people. Actually, one thing I've learned about myself is I don't really like managing a business full of a lot of people as well. So I try and take me out of it as much as possible.
It's because you're the same as me. You're a visionary and a creator rather than like an integrator and an implementer. So I like to come up with the idea, build the thing, and then kind of fuck off and manage it. So which is why I like the front end, the marketing and traffic strategy, that's cool. But I don't want to be like, Karen, you need to fucking stop pissing off Dave and like whatever else is going on and all the other crap that happens, right? And I think that is the nitty and gritty where entrepreneurs actually go and die, because if you're naturally entrepreneurial, that will rot you inside.
You start doing everything you didn't want to do. Like I became an HR, like when we had the big business in Dubai those years ago, I remember looking up at my desk and there was a queue of people waiting to talk to me. I was like, what have I created here? This is just not what I signed up for. And I was just, it was just stuff going under my nose, like signed to that. What the hell's that? All right. People starting, I didn't even know who they were. I was this is becoming something I never wanted to create. And actually, the best thing that happened was the oil price crashed, and we nearly got taken out by it. And then I could rebadge the business again into something else. COVID then happened, and that made me look at offshoring in a completely different way to it before. I was like, sweet, I can take things off my desk, and people can be a million miles away, and I don't have to see them. And and they're a lot more loyal and hardworking than people in Dubai who hit you up for a pay rise every 6 months. Don't really work that hard and expect everything delivered to them on a silver platter. So it opened all of these things have opened my eyes to it.
And I think that's always where things that happen that kick you in the balls is how can you reframe that? Because I think the more successful entrepreneurs see them as an opportunity of how can I pivot around this so that I still win rather than I'm losing.
Yeah, completely agree. And actually, the best thing that happened to me, like Singapore was probably one of the worst places to be during COVID, because we were so isolated and stuck. I had to rely on technology and I had to rely on offshoring as much as possible. I couldn't bring anyone into Singapore. No, Singaporeans are very risk averse. No one wanted to move job. So basically, was the guy marooned in Singapore, and they had to build this business with like a motch-potch team scattered everywhere, connected via Zoom. We had never done either of those things before, because COVID forced me into that, and it just went, right, this is how I'm going to do it from now on. Best decision I made.
How important do you think with your own business success networking has been, and how important do you think that sphere of influence has improved, say, you being here or Singapore versus the UK?
I left the UK 17 years ago. So I had one of my business failures was I opened up a UK business in 2016, and I knew I kept it open for a year and spunk like £500,000. I should have shut it down as soon as I got the inkling that it wasn't going to work, because it was hyper competitive. People wanted to pay like shit. There was I couldn't attract any good talent to our business because like 30,000 recruitment companies inside the M25. We were just playing this completely different game to what we were in Dubai and in Hong Kong, where we were recognized as a premium product, masters of what we do, experts in the niche, respected, people wanted to work for us. And then we had this UK offshoot that was just basically like the rut of family. And I found that just doing business in the UK, I didn't take enormous amounts of pleasure from it anymore. And although it had scale in it, I was much more comfortable being the bigger fish in the smaller pond, where there was plenty of opportunity, bigger fees. So I just, having burned that money, I then went all in on the regions that we were. And it learned me, I learned about niche so clearly then, because even though we had a niche as a sector, we didn't have a niche as a geography. I was trying to be all things to all people. And actually, the minute we said we're Middle East and Asia experts, boom, then we had an identity as well. And that business took off.
And that's one of my favorite sayings from a content perspective. You speak to everyone, you speak to no one.
Yeah.
And the reason most people struggle now on social media right now is because they are trying to be too vanilla, too generalist. They're not speaking to one specific person, one specific avatar, and hitting their real deep pain points. And if anyone wants actually a tactical hack, I'll give you using AI, we spoke about that earlier. If you do sales calls or anything that's recorded, if you take like 30 to 40 sales calls, run them into AI, ask it to pull you out the top 10 pain points for your customers. You can then pull those out and then be like, give me 20 negative hooks I can use for Instagram Reels or YouTube intros. Absolutely rips. And that's the exact language your audience is using.
Yeah. That's a great tip for anyone listening. I listened to a guy called John Lee, who you actually put my way as well. I heard some really good tips from him as well. Do you wear one of those wearable devices out of interest? No. Are you ever?
I've thought about it, but like I have so many call recordings of me on Zoom and stuff. I don't really see the point in that. I know where he's coming from, but I also think there's an element of overdoing it to some degree, if that makes sense. It's like I've hours and hours and hours and hours.
My wife might not know if it's me replying to her.
Dude, I have actually thought about like I could automate my WhatsApp and then I don't have to. Do you know what I mean? I've thought about loads of shit like that, to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough. So we talked about early influences and like people that you were watching, and it's just from our conversation then. I looked at, and I've built an info business that tells people how to build and scale a recruitment business now. And one of the main reasons I set up this podcast was because I was, there was so much crap out there when I was looking at people to share their success stories. There was so many people about talking the end result, but not really talking about the journey. And the whole purpose of this podcast is to make people understand what the lessons they can learn, how they can grow through the journey that they're on. What do you point when you started to kind of, because people asked you, Coach Charlie, as you became, how you got there, how honest and transparent were you with people about the journey, and how much did you have to say about how painful it was? Or I'm curious to know, because you made it sound incredibly easy so far.
I would say it's anything but easy, but I would say it's anything but complicated. So in my opinion, to grow, say particularly in the fitness niche, to grow a online business that is successful is pretty simple. Is it hard? Yes. But building any business is hard.
Yeah.
And I would say probably in the beginning, I didn't talk about how difficult it was because it didn't really suit my avatar of selling fitness programs. Now I'm radically transparent about it is fucking difficult. And the most warped and messed up thing about the whole situation is it is hardest when you have the least amount of skill, the least amount of resources, the worst network, which is at the beginning, because you have nothing. And that's where you have to have that strength of character and something really driving you and pushing you to go and do this thing. And that's where, in my opinion, that's the key point. You need to get escape velocity, where you have to have someone to help you, in my opinion. Or like my YouTube and stuff, people help free.
Velocity.
Yeah, like momentum. Yeah. Because I remember the first time I sold a Word document fitness program, something for £40 a month. I was like, this is sick. I made money on the internet from someone messaging me on Instagram, and it was terrible. But like, it was just proof of concept. And that's actually the thing I look for now with everything. Even when we run paid ad campaigns at thousands of pounds a day, I'm like, I'm just looking for proof of concept that someone pays us money. I'm like, this thing could work. And that for me is like the gamification of the process. And I'd say for anyone that it is really, really difficult, and make sure you understand what you are signing up for, because once you're in, I also don't think it's easy to step out of. And I don't think it would be easy to go and work a normal job or for someone else.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to back yourself and go through the shit, you can then have everything else on the other side.
Yeah. So today, your business that you've got your coach, so give us a feel of the scale of the business, the empire that you run. So
at the moment, we have a fitness business that has 500-600 online clients. We have a business that helps trainers scale that has over 300 clients. We have a team of 33, I think, 34. It floats, depends on what's going on the day. So
that used to be higher, didn't it?
Yeah, we had 52, 53. And actually, some great advice I'd give to anyone on this is our team is 20 less, but we make the same money, if not more. Right. Because what we had was bodies, but not brains. We had a lot of, I'm trying to put this politically correct, but a lot of fucking idiots from less well-educated areas, and now we just get better people who can do 3 to 4 times as much, but also by utilizing things like AI via the copywriter, content manager now just writes all the emails, the copy using AI prompts we gave her. So it's like we're utilizing systems and AI to reduce the number of bodies we have, and actually trying to have a leaner team that's higher level people who can then really be like fully bought in. And one of the things that I want is everyone's all in on the business, like not 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And I think I was probably too nice to a lot of people at the start, whereas there's a saying like, it's like, be kind but not nice. So it's like, if someone's not doing their job well, then they're letting everyone else down the team. They're also letting down your customers down. Like that has to be addressed, or they have to go. And I think a lot of people when their business start to scale, it's the non-sexy things of operations, data, and people that are the big things. And I think one of the things, I was actually reflecting on this morning, that if I had the knowledge of data and numbers and business that I have now, not 2-3 years ago, probably in 2020, 2021, we would have gone so much faster, because I was probably making way more than I realized on paid advertising.
Okay. Well, why didn't you realize it?
Just wasn't tracking the numbers effectively. And I ask coaches this all the time, like, what's your cost to acquire a customer? What's your LTV? What's your ROAS? How much are you spending on ads? How many calls do you book every day? What's your call sharp rate? What's your close rate? How much cash do you collect per call? Like, how many outbound messages a day do you send? Or how many follow-up messages a day? And they're like, I don't know any of those. I was like, well, we don't know what the problem is because you don't have any numbers. You're just going off like, I think it's this. Well, why? Because you're using emotion and not logic. But business is a logic game, not an emotion game. So if you have data and numbers, and particularly from like my side and our side, like, we look across 300 of the biggest fitness businesses in the world. We see patterns very, very quickly of what works and what doesn't. And I give you some context to this is, we used to crush it running Facebook Messenger ads. I actually mentioned this earlier on. They are terrible right now. They don't work. They literally just do not work. So that's not a strategy we'd recommend to people. I had a guy come on a sales call, actually I took last week, and he's like, I'm doing this. Actually, it was one of my team. I listened to the call recording, and he was like, I'm doing this Facebook ads messaging funnel that I got on this free course. I'm like, yeah, dude, that doesn't work. That worked like 2 years ago. Like, you can do it, but you're just going to lose loads of money.
Yeah. Or
you could do this thing here that, like, see these other 300 people we work with, this works right now. Like, you might want to do this, not what worked 2 years ago, because the relevance of what works now is incredibly important. I think one of the most important things with online businesses is also timing, because information goes off very fast right now.
When you scale the business, what was the biggest challenge though from a people and like a managerial perspective? Because I've had plenty of people on here, Charlie, who've really found that rapid scale of the business, all of a sudden all these people they're responsible for, they found that one of the most challenging elements of growing a business. How has that been for you? And also everything else been remote, right?
Yeah.
So be interested to hear how you've done that.
Personally dislike that the most in the business, to be radically transparent. Not to anyone who we work with who are watching this, but I fucking hate managing people, and I don't like teams, which is why actually I think Aidan you've spoken to is now like, he loves that stuff. And I think that's the good job of an entrepreneur and a CEO is, what am I really good at? What's my like zone of genius? What do I really dislike doing? If you really dislike doing something, you're probably not very good at it, and you're probably not going to you're going to try and shy away from that as much as possible. So for me, that would be one of those things. And then if you can find someone who likes doing that type of thing, then like, cool, like plug them in and fill the gap. I would say the biggest challenge with that is trying to not hire too fast. Now, I said earlier on here about like bulldozer and just like, that's kind of what happened, right? I just bulldozed like, okay, we need someone for X, Y, Z. Like, he's alive, he can do, like, stick in the seat, off we go. Yeah. And then Annie would ensue 6 to 8 weeks later, they're gone, and then we're back in the same position. Yeah. So it's now a framework I like to think about is Rolls Royce. So like, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So it's like, instead of like disruptive to our business all the time, because when you bring someone in and then they go, and you bring someone else in and then they go, it's disruptive for teams. I'm trying to be very, very tactical of like, who we bring in. Is this person a really good fit? Would I like to go for dinner with this person? Yeah. Do I think he's a bit of a dick? Like, if I don't like them, they go. Like, it is what it is. And I think being very clear of what you would tolerate and what good looks like, and not rushing the process. I think that's the biggest mistake we've made in the past is we have a gap and we just try and fill it as quickly as possible, rather than like playing like chess to find the right person to put in the place. Yeah.
First of all, how do you retain those people? Because that's surely like staff retention is a key part of your business strategy and business growth. Like, how do doesn't sound like you're that involved in Charlie Johnson Fitness anymore. No. That kind of runs itself, but you're very involved in seven-figure scaling systems. So how can you have two businesses that run at the same time with you mainly involved in one and not the other? And how do you retain your staff?
I think making sure people actually feel like they're cared for and listen to. Like, even like yesterday, I did 7 hours straight of Zoom calls, like 12 till 7 p.m. back to back with like every single team member. So that I spoke with everyone personally, like, hey, how are you, Justin? Like, what's going on? Like, actually, like, I give a shit, which I do. And I think creating that environment and giving people that their open forum to be like, what do you think is going well? What do you think we can improve? How can I help you? Like 3 best questions you should probably ask when it works for you. Very simple. But it's also probably the most useful thing you can do as a business owner to get feedback, because there's all these things that happen that you don't see because you're too far removed. But if you have conversations with these people, you get very quick feedback in terms of things that need to be fixed. So I think actually creating the right culture around that is very important. But also when it comes back to hiring, not bringing the wrong person in, because we've done that multiple times, brought someone in, and if you bring in a bad apple that rot the bag, like it starts to unsettle other people. They get pissed off with that person and then they want to leave. We've even had a context where I actually fired one of our best team members because he was just being lazy, and then he went to go and work for someone else, and then we rehired him a month ago, and he's fucking crushing it. And he was like, I apologize because I was really just lazy and complacent, and I realized how lucky I was working here. And I think that's even one of the things I say to people is like, don't be afraid to get rid of people if they're really fucking good but they're just not doing what they're supposed to do, because if their attitude's not right, they have to go. Attitude has to be above everything else, in my opinion, because someone can have a level 10 skill set, but if their attitude sucks, it's going to affect everything else. And you might relate to this of like, a WhatsApp message or message someone on Slack, you know, fuck's this person like? If you have that reaction, that's a really bad sign. And if you want a business which has less anxiety and stress, if you don't have those people, you have less of those reactions every day.
Of course.
So I think that would be a big thing I'd give to people.
My aunt told me this thing years ago. My aunt, she's run her own business and a very successful lady. She said, if you wake up in the morning, the first person you think about isn't the person you sat next to, right? And it's a staff member, you know they've got to go.
Or a client.
Yeah, or a client. And I just, that's it. Whenever I have that feeling, I know it's gone. And it was so accurate that. I'm curious how, one of the things that I've suffered from over the years, and perhaps because recruitment's got low barriers to entry, right? But
competitors?
I've basically created this conveyor belt of competitors over the years. So most people that kind of look for marketing communications or creative staff in Dubai, probably, if they're not dealing with my business, they're probably dealing with someone who's come off the conveyor belt of our business, right? They've been trained up. When you're not, so when everyone's virtual, you're teaching them you're getting them into the inner sanctum of your business, how it operates, how it runs. Is there a degree, because I say this because you've someone that said you had anxiety. Is there not a degree of fear that you've had that you're going to be creating these sort of mini competitors within your business?
As in team members got to go do their own thing. This is where social media creates an unfair advantage because I'm essentially building a media business around me and a moat around the business with that. So like, cool, you can go and sup the exact same thing, but you don't have the traffic or the reputation or the client results and all these other traffic sources and all the shit that brings people in. So that's the big thing I think people need to understand. And this is why I'm so glad you're doing podcasts, is because the most powerful thing for people in the next 5 years is in your personal brand. Like that is not going away. People want to buy from people. People also want to like be linked to people with status. It's just funny how that works. Like even I was at the Jumeirah Al Nassim, and some dude came up to me. I was waiting for my car. I was like, "Oh, can I have a selfie?" I followed on Instagram, like just random shit like that. And this is funny. It was like a roofer or something. I was like,
there you go.
But like for me, I still find that really, really bizarre. But like for me, like, okay, cool. That's a sign you're going in the right direction. Because one of the things I picked up from actually Grant Cardone to run this podcast when I was driving around Surrey was, if no one knows you, they can't give you the money. So like the more known you are, the easier it is. So best known beats best. You can be the greatest coach in the world. But if you live under the fucking stairs like Dobby and Harry Potter, like you're not going to have any clients. So like you need to be in front of people, because eyeballs is the first part of the jigsaw puzzle to then have a successful business.
And none of your coaches, therefore, that work on Charlie Johnson Fitness, none of them are successful coaches in their own right.
They are, but they don't have the scale to that degree. And I think it's also a different, content is like an art form and it's a different skill. And I think even from a business perspective, I get people try and rip us off and like imitation versions of me. Well, I just think it's funny because it's like I was thinking, it was in the gym this morning, it's like, it was a shit version of Charlie Johnson. Like it doesn't really work. And even I see our competitors try and change their marketing where we've started to like annihilate them, and they're trying to change their branding of like their identity to then try and like mirror me maybe slightly.
Yeah.
But like you're disillusioning the people who buy into you. And this is where people need to like stand on your hill that you want to stand on of who you are and what you represent. So for like me in the fitness industry, it's like, if you want to build a business that makes loads of money and you help loads of people, cool. That's like, I'm here to help you. If you want a coach, you can put an arm around a fucking your shoulder and be like, oh, it's all okay. Like, I'm not the guy for you.
You're not the life
Yeah,
coach.
I'm not the, that's not my jam, right? Like, I'm a tactic strategy dude. Like, okay, do X, Y, Z, we get to like where you want to go. Cool, let's go.
No free hugs.
Yeah, no free hugs. It's like, it is what it is. Like, we solve problems.
Yeah.
And then we help you solve other people's problems.
Gotcha.
And then you get the life you want.
Yeah. Charlie, I've heard you speak before, and you said that one of your goals of the business is to take it to an acquisition, right? Which for someone looking at that, you've got a business that's built very much around you as an individual. Okay. I know a lot of people in the M&A space, and I've had a couple of people approach us about our business before. One of the issues that I've encountered, and I'm curious on your answer to this, is that I'm quite nailed to the business. My face, particularly in the Middle East, most people that think of MCG Talent think of my face nailed to it, as much as I've tried to push that way. Asia, we don't have that problem at all. But I got stopped in Sri Lanka airport. Oh, you're Justin from LinkedIn or MCG, you know. I'm completely linked, okay, to the business. And it's worked against me a couple of times. But what you've spoken about here, obviously, the way you've answered that about your social media, how you are, you know, everything that you can drive into your business. If I wanted to buy your business, like, surely I'd have to buy you and your visual identity and your social media presence with that.
So what I would do is, my plan is we would try and push selling a software rather than probably our consulting business.
Okay.
But we could wrap the two up together and get a much higher multiple. And then all we essentially need to do, which we already have, is a paid acquisition strategy, which isn't on me. Yeah. So we have an outbound dialing team via ads, which has nothing to do with me. So it would just be a transition period if I want to do that in 3 to 5 years of, okay, could I bring in someone who could be the face of the business and run it instead of me? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I'm looking to do the same thing right now. If like our main focus is trying to scale our ads in North America, the US market is the biggest. Yeah. And I'm going to hire American actors to be in the ads instead of me because I feel there's a resistance because of the British accent. Sometimes like initially because they can tell you're foreign. So that's going to be something we're going to test, and we split test loads of stuff. But essentially,
so what? Give me an example. What will they be doing?
It'll literally be like it literally be in the video Facebook ads. Yeah. So Facebook ads would run from an account called 7 Scaling Systems, which is an IG account, and it would literally be like, are you a trainer in Nevada who's looking to scale your online business? You're burning money on Facebook ads. You don't know how to get to the next level. Blah blah blah. Click the link below to get our free course. Yeah. It's not me. They don't I'm out, and that's ultimately all you need to do to have a business you can exit, is where all the acquisition isn't just via your face. Yeah. That's not going to happen overnight. And whether that's what we end up doing or it merges into something else, I don't know. We've had someone recently ask me about acquiring it, which I didn't want to do. I'm not interested in selling it right now because I can tell we're on that like knife edge where it's about to jump up another gear. And I think that's where actually our main priority is not actually now acquiring clients, acquiring team members. So our main priority is actually not sales, it's recruitment, because I need good people in certain positions. Otherwise we are proverbially fucked because we're going to pull people through and then we can't fulfill on what we need to do because we have more demand than we can actually handle. Yeah. Which is a good problem, but nonetheless it's a problem that you have in business.
Yeah. And you see the main part of growth, not your B2C business, you're quite happy with the numbers and that to tick over and do its thing. Sorry.
My goal is to build the gym launch for online trainers, like Alex Ramosi did.
Okay. So Charlie, you just got back from Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
What were you doing out there?
So I was there for 6 weeks. If I'm radically transparent, I flew across the world for 18 hours to get a marketing photo for going to the Funnel Hacking Live event to get 2 Comma Club X award, which is when you've done $10 million in sales online. And if I was actually honest already, it's worked because I took the image with me and Russell Brunson on stage with all these awards, and we put it on one of our funnels, and our opt-in rate is doubled, which is basically half our lead cost, which is pretty wild. So that was the first part of it. Second part, I was there for an event with Alex Ramosi, and then I ended up signing up to work with them to help in terms of scaling our business. One of the things that's very interesting, you can actually see on his podcast channel, is he kind of annihilated me, and I didn't realize it was being recorded, is I asked him, okay, we want to scale our business like everyone does. do we focus more on paid ads? If so, like which one of these two strategies, or do we focus on organic? And he asked me a load of questions on numbers. I knew all my numbers, so I don't look like a fucking dick, which is a good start. Because most people are and then he was like, neither of them. You just need to reduce your churn rate. And I was like, this is really obvious. I don't know why I didn't look at this. And then subsequently in the 2 months after that, we halved the churn in our business, which basically means at the end of the year, we should be making an extra 100 grand a month if we can maintain that. Yeah. And that's by doing two very simple things that I already knew how to do, but just wasn't doing.
Right. So in essence, you've paid a super successful guy to tell you what was gleamingly obvious. Brilliant.
In about 2 minutes.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about this is that, you're perceived as very successful to the outside world. Right? Most people would say, why does Charlie bother getting a coach? Because, he's already there. He's probably way beyond he ever expected to go when he left that estate agency. What's made you want to pay for mentors? What's made you want to absorb more information? I'm curious to know, because you're eating it all up. You've got an insatiable appetite.
It's the fear of the unknown, because as we spoke about earlier, the world is moving at a rapid pace. And in my opinion, the number one reason entrepreneurs, particularly men, are not as successful as they should be is pride and ego, because they think they know everything. I can learn from multiple different people. I can learn from you. I can learn from whoever it is, because even people just have a different perspective and will look at something from a different angle. And in particular with your own business, sometimes you're so in it, you can't see the wood through the trees, where someone's like, yeah, you didn't actually see, but like this thing over here is on fire. You probably should like deal with that before you deal with anything else. And what I tend to see is that, myself included with this statement, is entrepreneurs tend to like try and fixing problems by doing things they like doing. So for me, it's like, cool, I like marketing, I like making ads, I like doing front end stuff. So let's just solve all problems with getting more traffic. Cool, let's go and do that. But you're just creating a bigger problem to deal with further down the line, where it might be that you have a systems issue, a pricing issue, churn issue, or whatever the problem is.
Gotcha. Now I learned from you. So the disclaimer, I've been on Charlie's course. I am a success story from it. So there you go. That's nice. But one thing I've always learned, and I use this myself, because one of the things you said, first of all, that really turned my head when you said it, was you wanted time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom, which I just think summed up so well a lot of the goals that I have in my own life. But I'm curious, like freedom, right? What does that word actually mean to you, mate? Because you strike me as someone that likes to be in the weeds of everything. You're a busy guy, yeah? What actually does freedom mean to you? And do you, because for some people, this is, flying free as a bird, fluttering around the world. I'm curious.
My definition of like the perfect day is nothing in my calendar.
Okay.
So like this is maybe how weird and nerdy I am. Last Wednesday, I had nothing in my calendar on purpose, and I could just do whatever I wanted. And I found loads of things that I need to fix and loads of funnels and stuff that I needed to optimize. And I basically ended up like 3xing our lead flow in like 4 hours by just like changing some words on some pages. And for me, that's the fun thing I like doing, because I like tinkering with stuff.
Yeah.
What I don't like is Zoom calls. I don't like managing teams. I like working a bit in a silo, because I'm creative and naturally introverted. So I like solving problems and sitting and thinking. And for me, that would be my ideal scenario, is that I would have like a day like I did yesterday, which I did 7 hours of Zoom calls back to back.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the week as minimal as possible.
Yeah.
Because I like open space. And then if I want to work, I will work. If I want to go and play paddle for 3 hours, I'll go play paddle. If I go to the gym, I'll go to the gym. Obviously, I will have like a routine around that. Yeah. But for me, that is freedom, because then if I feel like I want to work, I will work. If I feel like I don't want to, I want to go to the beach and read, I will do that. And I think it's the choice of, do I want to do this or do I not, rather than I have to.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever be in a position where I have to do something. Same thing if like, I don't want to have to take this client on. I mentioned earlier about like people messaging like, fuck this guy I want. And like, there's people who we've got rid of in the past for clients because I'm like, this guy's just like a pain in the ass and just annoying. So like politely, like, here's your money and just go away. Like, I'd rather not take the money and have to deal with it. So I think that for me is empowering, but also gives you confidence in yourself, because like it's an abundance mentality of where you're not like clawing everything. And I think one of the mistakes why entrepreneurs want to start all these businesses, we have a fear mindset, and you think that every fucking pound on the table you have to collect. But what they end up actually then doing is they end up stepping over the dollars to collect the dimes. And I think that is a framework that I really try and think about, is how can you be efficient with your time so you actually get what you want, rather than just being a busy fool. And I've done that in the past, which is why now I'm trying to really be like, okay, ideally I want like 3 days a week, which are maybe busier. And then like Wednesdays and Fridays, I can do whatever I like.
Gotcha. Okay. Freedom to fix funnels.
Yeah, fix funnels, or like just to think. Like for me, something I'm really enjoying at the moment is I put on an audiobook, and then I'll just walk down like around Dubai Marina, around the harbour, like walking the sun, take your top off, like just think like life, business, like just let your brain drift. Because just when you come up with those magic moments of ideas, and I'll be on I'll put my phone, oh, it's a sick idea. And that for me is where I see business as a game, and that's why I will never stop playing the game, because I enjoy it. And that's why I see people come into this and they're forcing themselves to do it. And the competitors who are against me, for example, who are forcing them to do things will never win, because I'm not forcing myself to do it. I want to do it because I enjoy it.
The local freedom to sort of be wherever you. Well, that one really resonates with me when you said it as well. So I've actually, you've seen it because we follow each other on social. You've seen I spend a lot of time in Sri Lanka, so with my family. So I want to try and spend as much time in the places that I love as possible. So we've engineered a life now where we're here when the kids are in school. We're in Sri Lanka when the kids aren't in school. But in the summer, we also go spend a month in Europe. I mean, for you, what led you? So you've left this shed in the UK, right? You're now living in Dubai. We've got to know each other in Dubai, even though we're from the same town. What brought you here, and where do you see yourself going?
Initially, what brought me here, I'm not going to beat around the bush, is the tax system in the UK. I felt I was pretty much forced out, the point of like, on a sheer maths thing of like, this is literally insane, of like, why am I doing all of this to then give you the government, basically, you work for the government at that point. I'm like, well, this is retarded. So I don't want to play this game. I want to leave. And then if you want to get financial freedom, the quickest way to then do that is to eliminate the biggest cost you have in life, which is tax. So then, and also I hate the UK weather. I remember as I was leaving, someone said to me in the gym, well, actually when I came back from Dubai from like a trip there, I was like, oh, you're back here slumming it with us. And I was like, it's the exact fucking reason I'm leaving. You're a dick. And that mentality never really served me. And that's where for me is like the exposure thing again. If you just hang around with successful people all the time and you see a world of possibility rather than a world of scarcity, your view of the world changes dramatically. And I think me coming here to Dubai really accelerated that. People will often ask like, oh, are you going to be there forever? The reality is right now, there is no better place in the entire world than here, in my opinion, which is why everyone is moving here en masse. I personally like the United States a lot. It also has a lot of issues. The only thing I say is downside here is the heat in the summer is not ideal, but like you could say the same thing about the UK in the winter. It's dark and rainy all the time. So pick your poison. Yeah.
And you go to Spain, don't you?
So my family live in Marbella, so I go there quite a lot during the summer sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. And where, obviously you're in the thick of growing your business now. What's it look like behind the scene? What's family, personal life look like for you?
So interestingly, I've never spoken about this, and I would be the first one I can say this on camera. So we're actually doing a gender reveal later on today. So I found out I'm going to be a dad. So no one knows about this at all. Even my parents don't even know.
Wow, congratulations.
I found out on Valentine's Day when I was in Las Vegas, my girlfriend was pregnant. So that's cool. And I think if I'm also transparent, my previous partner we were with, I had 3 failed rounds of IVF. So I was like, basically kind of not giving up. I was like, it's not going to fucking happen. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting change. And then some people have said to me like, oh, you won't be able to do X, Y, Z. And I was like, just watch me. Cause like my brain is very like solution orientated. If I'm already thinking about like, how can I, I said already, I have like 2 days clear. How can I systematize things around this so I can still get the things I want? And then that's why I messaged you a lot about this. Like I take a lot of inspiration from things I see from you on social media, because like you have everything in every area of life. And I think that's what people want. And even though I thought about this from a marketing standpoint, it's like the 4 Fs of fitness, finances, fatherhood, and family. Like that's like the big thing everyone wants as a guy, right? So that I think is what I have coming up right now. And it's going to be an interesting journey to see what happens with that.
Have you thought a lot about being a dad before?
Yeah, something that's been a massive driving force for me.
Really? And what's driven you? I'm intrigued.
I think to try and create a better version of myself. So I'll find out if it's a boy or girl later on. But I can say this because she won't know if you want to see this in time, but I have a feeling from my girlfriend's reaction on her face, it's a girl. She thinks it needs to be a girl because it will help balance me out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yin to yang. And she's a bit concerned if it's a boy, then I'll just fucking teach him the ways. So I think there's a lot to be said for that, but I think it's I think it will change me and make me better at business.
Yeah. Why do you think that?
Because I'll end up being forced to be more efficient with my time. And also, this has already happened the last month or two. It's like elongating my time frames in terms of what I'm looking to do and why, rather than at a certain point, it's like you're a 35-year-old guy who's a multi-millionaire who has loads of followers on social media in a great shape and you live in Dubai. It's like, what the fuck am I doing this for anymore? Like, it's at like what point, like what is the actual, not what's the meaning of life, but like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Whereas now I actually have more of a purpose and a drive.
The
and
word
to set
purpose,
an example.
you said it then. Yeah. That's what I was, because what I was trying to get to, because you're doing all these amazing things and you talk about time, location freedom, financial freedom. I get it. But why? You know, that's the big question. Why?
It's purpose.
It's purpose. It's purpose. And that's what my kids have given me. And I fall back to this. I fall back to it all the time now. You know, it's the main reason that I spurred on and want to do things in my life. And you learn it's not about what you say, actually. It's about how you behave. It's all about how you behave. You know, keeping fit. I remember my mate Carlo saying to me, you know, just go and let your kids watch you go out every day and keep fit and do exercise and stuff. Now they're at an age where, you know, I'm 45. When I went back and saw my schoolmates, geez, you know, some of them just looked disgraced, right? I can play, run around, swim, do everything I can with the kids. And it's, you know, apart from beating John Obi Mikel in sports day, you know, I can do pretty much everything else, right, to a high standard. I love that. I get a buzz out of that, you know, that, what a reason to want to stay longer with them as well. Also, I love business. I can't see myself, like people talk about
I never retire.
I'm never going to retire.
I retire when I'm dead. Like you put me in the ground.
Exactly. I remember when my grandfather retired early. He was a really successful engineer, moved to the New Forest, and basically all his colleagues, everyone just started dropping like flies. You know, they didn't play golf. They didn't really drink a lot more, but I don't think he had a purpose anymore. Didn't anything to do anymore. And I'm going to need something to do. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to be able to keep a marriage if I,
Yeah, true.
if I don't have a purpose in business.
Well, I think that's where, in my opinion, a man who's got nothing to do and no purpose is a man who gets himself in trouble and then causes problems in his life. And I think that's why men need something to drive themselves into. We're inherently competitive creatures and we have been for a very long period of time. So like business is the ultimate competition and the game you can never win and the game you can keep playing. Yeah. And that's really the way I try and look at it. And it's, well, I think I actually heard this explained, I think by Naval Ravikant on the Chris Williamson podcast. He talked about the difference between the money game and the status game. I'd never heard it explained like this. This is really, really interesting. The money game, everyone can win. So like, we can both make more money, everyone wins. The status game, there's always going to be one person who's beating another person, like in terms of like pecking order. For like you to go from number 10th in tennis world rankings to number 5, you're going to have to like move 5 people out of the way. Yeah. So I think that was an interesting thing as well to think about.
Really interesting. Really interesting. Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio today, mate. Congratulations. Thank you for sharing us this amazing news. If people want to sort of get hold of you, find out more information, perhaps get trained by one of your coaches, etc., how can they reach out?
Best thing to do is check out my Instagrams at Charlie Johnson Fitness. If you're interested in business content, our YouTube channel, Charlie Johnson Scaling Systems, has pretty much a walkthrough of how to do absolutely everything you can think of. And we also have our own podcast, The Charlie Johnson Show, as well.
Which I'm an avid listener of as well. I'm always giving you feedback.
We have some wild, just to get some great feedback on that.
Guys, thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you do want to hear more great guests, then please do subscribe to the channel and look forward to seeing you next time.